What's made it popular and what's made it successful is the culture and the feeling that, we really treat people like company or home, like they're our friends. Talk to everybody. I'm still in the dining room every day, 6 days a week. I love what I do.
A legacy of hospitality in the Poconos at Woodloch. Welcome to Pocono Mountains Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 37. I'm your host, Jim Hamill. The word Woodloch is synonymous with hospitality. A tradition of excellence is the Woodloch way, started in the mid-20th century by the first generation of Kiesendahl family to have the resort on Lake Tidiuscung. Today, Woodloch has expanded to include the Springs with an 18-hole golf course, the Lodge, a destination spa resort, and of course, keeps families returning year after year after year for the traditional fun activities and first-class experience offered by the Kiesendahls and the top-notch staff. John Kiesendahl, also known as JK, sat down with our Chris Barrett for a Pocono Perspectives, which will be on the upcoming Pocono Mountains Magazine episode premiering February 4th, this Sunday. More on that discussion about the history and current day operations at Woodloch in just a bit. The Poconos is a year-round destination for millions, with 2,400 square miles of mountains, forests, lakes, and rivers. With historic downtowns and iconic family resorts, it's the perfect getaway. You can always find out more on PoconoMountains.com or watch PTN, the Pocono Television Network, streaming live 24/7. That's at PoconoTelevision.com. Now, back to the episode. Woodloch, a family-run Poconos resort returning countless guests to the resort's lodge and springs. I even was fortunate enough to work there in my college years, lifeguarding and learning the true meaning of hospitality, where you treat the guests like a guest in your own home. Here's Chris Barrett and John Kiesendahl. Enjoy.
So this whole story you're going to hear about Woodloch is all about fate.
The Pocono Mountain is the birthplace to a Pocono wonderland of untold pleasure.
Winter in the Poconos, clear and crisp.
Called the land of the waterfall.
A recipe for romance.
John Kiesendahl, take us back to 1958. Harry and Mary Kiesendahl, an 11-year-old John Kiesendahl. What happened in 1958?
I was a happy boy living on Long Island in a neighborhood, lots of houses around me, and great class of friends, never thinking about moving anywhere. My dad had humble beginnings. He started, when he graduated, he didn't even graduate from high school actually, 17 years old, he left and went to the war. As soon as Pearl Harbor was bombed.
World War II.
World War II. So he never graduated. He came out of this service, he was a good human man, ringing the bells, and a milkman. He delivered milk all around. And my dad was sitting in the living room on a Sunday, and because he was looking for something else to do. My mom was pushing him because he was never home. He was always doing different businesses. So let's do something we can do as a family. So we're sitting in the living room, and my dad just gets a phone number from the New York Times, says, boarding house for sale on a lake in Pennsylvania. Called up as a Brooklyn phone number, and the gentleman said, well, it's on Lake Tidiuscung in Pennsylvania. My dad's, his ears just rang, and he calls up, Mary.
Your mother.
It's my mother,
yeah.
Yes. It's on Lake Tidiuscung, the same lake my grandmother had brought them to when they were here, just going in the service, and they wanted to get married during the war. This is a true story. They put a stake in the ground at that time on that lake, and they said all the things you say when you're in love in 16 years old, or whatever they were, 17. And but then we never came back. And when he called this number in the New York Times, it happened to be Lake Tidiuscung, where they had put the stake in the ground. So we drove up to see Woodloch Pines. In 1958, it was a small summer boarding house, and this was March we went up.
So the boarding house was titled Woodloch Pines, so there
Right.
wasn't a Woodloch place, but
No.
it was a boarding house.
It was Woodloch Pines. We got up there, we had no neighbors 5 miles either side. We had no running drinking water. All the water would come up from a spring. And I'm thinking, oh no, we're not going to move up here. It's the end of the world. But we did move up.
And that was 1958.
That was 1958. And then once we got opened, and the full house was 40 people, it was only $6 a day to stay there. And that included 3 meals. And I would get the water, and I'd do the dishes, and we got involved. But then we met new people every week, and we treated them like company in our home. We found out that they liked that feeling, and I started to love that feeling. So I quickly adapted. We adapted, and that's where Woodloch started. And my mom and dad, my grandparents moved up with us, and it was a very humble beginning, very humble.
So the first Woodloch Pines in 1958, 40 guests. all in separate rooms, all in separate
individual
floors?
rooms, no bathrooms in a room. They were all down the hall. And so we had a couple little cottages around. I think we had 3 cottages, and then we had 6 rooms in the main house, and we had a barn that was converted into 14 rooms with, single bathrooms at the end of the hall. It was very humble. We only had 1 employee year round. So, but we treated our guests like company in our home. I think that's what made the difference. Yeah, so my dad did all cooking. My mom was the hospitality person, reservations, housekeeping, and we found out we loved what we did. We were only open 10 weeks, Memorial Day to Labor Day. Every year we fixed the place up a little bit.
So what did the Poconos look like in 1958 versus today? Why would a guest visit the Poconos at that time?
Well, first of all, from my vantage point at age 11, I could have been anywhere. I had no idea. All I knew was there was nobody around. And that was my big thing. But the Poconos were still a great place to go. Obviously, all the nature things that we're promoting now were there. Nobody really touted them as they do now. It was all about the honeymoon capital of the world, kind of. That was the big thing back in the 50s and the 60s. So it looked very different. We are in the northern Poconos, which is, we call it the Lake region. So it was just a beautiful area. You're 90 miles from New York, for us 100 miles from Philadelphia, people all around, and affluent people all around. Even though we started at $6 a day with 3 meals, as we built the business, things started to change a little bit.
So in 1958, when you had 40 guests, your dad had a lot of vision. What was the first expansion? Take us through the 60s, the 70s. How did that start to look?
Well, what happened is, as guests went home happy, they started to tell their friends, and they started to come back. And my dad realized we couldn't sustain ourselves on this little small boarding house. There was a girls' camp right next to us, Camp Tidyaskong. And we purchased that in 1961. That was the first big change. And we put an addition onto the main lodge. 1961, the girls' camp, it actually was a sad day in my life because I was 14 at the time. But anyway, we had the girls' camp was more than doubled our size. Then we fixed up some of the cabins and the cottages over the winters, and we started renting that as well. So that was a real key spot. Interesting thing about that is we couldn't get my dad couldn't get a mortgage because we were a small business. The camp cost $60,000, which at that time seemed like a lot of money. They had bought Woodloch for $40,000. And when they bought Woodloch for $40,000, it was 12 acres and 200 feet on the lake. And now here's another 200 feet on the lake and about probably it was 25 acres. So he went to the bank and nobody would lend him any money. So he went to our guests who a lot of them had loved Woodloch. So they came back and he sold $500 bonds to guests. And they gave him a discount when they came to Woodloch. And he raised almost $60,000 and we bought the girls' camp. It's a great story and an innovative dad who came up with this plan to raise money from our guests. They had confidence. They liked my parents. We were like family. We knew everybody. Not a lot of people to know. 40 every week. It was somebody different.
And the guests were totally invested in you.
The guests invested. They got a good return, and they got a discount when they came. It was a 5-year bond, and we paid them all back. I want to add one other thing about financing. So my dad sold bonds when he was buying the girls' camp. But when I had this big spurt of growth from 86 to 92, I never went to the bank. Everything was financed by our guests. I sold them different vacation plans with discounts when they come, 4% interest rate, and we just sold them around every week. I'd have a little meeting. Anybody wants to come in, they come in, boom. It was $5,000, $10,000, and we raised millions of dollars that way. And then those people who were our guests that donated, they became our best ambassadors. They went home, they said, oh yeah, I own a piece of the rock, or whatever they said. They became salespeople for us. It's unbelievable. So everything you see it's not new anymore, but that we did in those early days, and we spent a lot of money with all those things we did. It all came through the guests.
I think that's a testament to how they had faith in you and loved your property.
It's all based on that, the relationship, that sincerity and the trust. But it's really the part that works. And they knew they had to vacation there 5 or 10 years in order to get their money back, and they did.
Wow. So just out of curiosity, do any of the original structures still exist?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the main lodge is still there. In fact, my office on the top of the main lodge was an attic. When I was 11 years old, I slept there. And every night I went to bed with a tennis racket because it was infested with bats. We built our closing room up there. And now that's my office up top where I used to sleep only the ceiling's a little higher.
So I read that Woodloch does not have executive offices. Why is that?
Most of the time, we're on the floor with people, with our staff. We work elbow to elbow with people. That's been our tradition all the way through. If I don't say it now, I don't want to forget it. The most important asset we ever had at Woodloch, and always have been, is a great staff. We are blessed with terrific people. The culture that's developed over the 65 years we've been there and the success we've had is all about our staff. And that culture that we started back then of treating people like they were members of our family, that's how we treat all of our staff. So we talk about the 1,300 people we have. We talk about the Woodloch family, the greater Woodloch family. So we have offices. We just don't spend a lot of time in them. And that's how we've run our business, very hands-on. And my dad brought in a partner in '61 who was a good friend of his. So when he came in, he did the bakery, he did some different things. His wife did some of the housekeeping. She was in charge of housekeeping. And so it just rolled. Now that partnership lasted until 1990. I bought the business from my dad with Mr. Cranick, who was my dad's partner. We called him Uncle Don. His son was 5 years younger, so we bought our parents out in 1981.
When did you really decide, okay, now do I want to go out in the world? Do I want to stay and invest with my family? Because I think the big story too here is one of the great sides of the story is how your family today is involved. But you were there when you were 18.
Yeah, so I was there all through those young years. My dad sat me down and said, listen, you can be a teacher and you'll be a great teacher and a great coach, but I see an opportunity here. And, you've got good grades, you're a smart kid, so why don't you try and get into the Cornell Hotel School? So, with a lot of urging, a little pushing probably, I ended up going to Cornell Hotel School.
What year?
I was in from 65 to 69. 69 rolled around and it was Vietnam time. And so I volunteered for the service in the Navy, and I got into an OCS program, and I graduated as an officer in the Navy. Now, we were all trained in those days. We were all going to Vietnam, a week away from going, and I got my orders changed. One of the people who was running the officers' clubs in Norfolk, Virginia, had a heart attack and died, and he must have looked at my record, grew up in the business, hotel, school, boom, boom, boom. So they changed my orders.
But you wanted to go to Vietnam.
I was a gung-ho guy, so I was disappointed. All my buddies were going. So, it's one of those things that when everybody talks about what they did during the war, well, I ended up running officers' clubs at the Armed Forces Staff College in Norfolk, Virginia.
But you played an important role of people coming back from the war.
Yes, we did. The Armed Forces Staff College was NATO nations and Americans, all the senior officers, and so I ran the BOQ, which is the Bachelor Officers School, like a little hotel, and the COM opened the regular club. That was a great experience, but in hindsight, who knows if I'd be here today, but
and that's
something that sticks in my heart that I didn't do it.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. So then, obviously you're in the Navy, you have rank, you were successful there. You knew you could be successful somewhere else with hospitality. What drew you back to the Poconos, and how did that happen?
It happened very, very quickly and easily. My dad said, when I was getting out of the service, he said, I hope you want to come home, because if you don't come home, we're going to sell it. So what should I do? And we grew, and we grew not tremendously fast, but for a little place, it went pretty fast. We bought another camp on the lake. Camp Electra was a Christian Scientist camp. We bought a little small boarding house that was on the lake. So by the time 1981 rolled around, when I purchased the business, Woodloch handled about 250 guests. And I loved the business. I mean, it was in my soul. Once I got through that 11-year-old stretch, I loved it. So I came back home, and from 1973 to 1981, I just gradually took over the business. Don Cranick, Uncle Don's son, Russ, who was my partner now, he came into it also, and he bought a half of the business. That was the time we really grew. I saw the potential. My parents had laid a great foundation of hospitality. We had a wonderful culture and relationship with all of our staff. They were just terrific. They understood the heart of what we were trying to do.
So how many are you now, I'm sorry.
We have over 1,300 acres now. We either own or control. We went from 12 acres to 1,300 acres in that 65-year span. In fact, we just bought another 60 acres on the lake. You have to keep doing that. At the time, early days, my dad would buy property saying, we don't have any money. How are we going to do this? So someday you're going to need that. Someday you're going to need that. Okay. I went into a 6-year growth span. So we built a lot. We built the nightclub, we built our big inn, we built all of our suites, 80 rooms. We added, in a 5-year span, a lot to it. So that's how Woodloch started to go. Then, along the way, by the time we got to 1986, the resort proper was about the size it is today. And we were just, okay, what next? Well, what came next is people all wanted a golf course. Our clientele had become more affluent as we went on, and we needed a golf course to be a great resort. So we were able to put together another 500 acres. We bought some land right next to us, 2 miles away, and we built a beautiful golf course. It was the centerpiece of a community we built. So we started a construction company and a real estate company at that point. In 1988, we started those. And so we built all the homes in this community, and we had a great golf course. And we call it Woodloch Springs, so it's a really terrific course. 18 holes, and you've played it, I believe, and it's really a special spot. It's scenic. And
you obviously had children through this whole time period.
Yes.
Did they grow up in the business the same way that you did?
I have 7 children, and they all started at 9 in the kitchen, laying out bacon, cutting strawberries, doing all those things that, dishes and all those things. So they've all grown up in the business, all 7. And I'm happy to say 5 of the 7 are back in the business. And in 2019, we transitioned the business to them. So I was 75 at the time, and I thought, hey, I could be gone tomorrow. I'm 77 now. So, happens fast, all this stuff. But
well, I think it's good to know kind of how the next generation.
Right.
But the one thing I have to ask you is the spirit of the hospitality piece. Now that we're in the second, third generations here, I love, first of all, your pants. I have to ask about your pants. How did that start? How did the pants start? How did the costumes? How did that start?
So this goes way back. My dad used to wear different colored sweaters. That was his thing. And, that kind of got attention. People said, oh, yeah, Harry, you have a new sweater on today. The guests would, relate to it. So I started wearing colorful pants. And when I bought the business in 1981, I started wearing character pants, ones you could buy off the rack. And then one year I had a pair of elbow pants made or something. And they were all embroidered. And it started so many conversations.
With the guests.
With the guests.
Right.
And the kids just loved it. And then more importantly, I said, you know what? There's intrinsic value in these. So I kept buying them, and the staff realized, even the owner is going to make fun of himself and do whatever it takes to make our guests happy. It made everybody relax more. I wanted them to know it's a fun place to be, the staff and the guests. So it really worked both ways. The Woodloch Pines primarily is a family resort. So we have lots of kids, lots of families. They come back year after year, and then we have other pieces now, but that's what it was. So I started doing this. Well, we built a spa, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
No, that's
okay.
We want to talk about
I keep rolling. So
go ahead.
we did the golf course, and we figured, okay, that's it. Now we have a perfect resort. But everybody, by the time we got to the 90s, everybody wanted to have a spa. So we got into purchasing some more land and a little lake, and it's right at the end of our other lake, and the lodge at Woodloch began.
The spa has always been consistently ranked as one of the top 10, not in Pennsylvania, United States, but in the world by Condé Nast.
Yes.
Right, consistently for the last, since you've owned it, probably.
Yep. Well, we brought a spa person in as our partner, so we had partners in this. We bought the land that had our name on it, and it opened up in 2006, and the place was beautiful. But the partner was managing. He was a little more elitist in how he approached things, and the hospitality wasn't the same. It didn't match up with our name. So we ended up in 2010 buying partners out, and we went from 24% occupancy in 2009 to, 3 years later, we're at 85%. So it's really skyrocketed.
What is your hospitality heart? What is the Woodloch hospitality heart, if somebody asked you that, if a guest did?
I said we have a deep passion for making people happy, but in each different resort it's doing something different, because at Woodloch Pines, we reconnect family, and we can see what happens. They come in the door, and they're sitting with their family at their meals, they're recreating together, they're having a ball, and they go home happy, and their spirit is high. And at the lodge, it's a whole different, it's rejuvenation and, finding some peace and peacefulness. And I tell my kids all the time, we're doing God's work. You know what? We bring people together, we bring some peace in the world, and it's very, very rewarding to myself and to our family, just as it was to my parents.
It seems that the thread of that first 40 guests in 1958 is still with us today, just in different forms.
Yep. The mission statement has never changed. we didn't even know it was the mission statement in 1958, but as we went on, we said, you know what? Our mission will be to treat every single guest who comes through our doors or does business with us in any way as if they're company in our own home. We're going to treat them like friends. So it'll be a very personalized hospitality. It's not just, you say what you're supposed to say. It comes from your heart. When we hire people, we don't look for a whole bunch of experience. What we look for is attitude, enthusiasm, and then try and see their heart. Like they tell them all the time, you can learn service from a book. You have to learn hospitality. It has to come from your heart. And that's what we talk about all the time. And obviously, passionate about it. I mean, I'm very passionate about it. And my children, thank goodness, understand how that all works, and they're in it.
It was amazing being a guest there. Got on the shuttle, and the driver knew you, spoke very highly of you and the family, and the answer, and he had said, didn't know who I was. He said, I feel like I'm part of their family. And you don't see that today, really, the relationship of a team member to an employer, which is, I think, the heart of that too. They do feel
definitely.
like that.
Trying to know people. We have a crisis fund when people get in trouble. They have a significant issue. We help them out financially. We do a lot of different things and we have lots of gatherings together. It's all part of building that heart and the center of hospitality. So it's clearly what makes us where we are now. We are blessed. As again, I know my dad didn't know this, but the Pocono Mountains has not become. It used to be the Pocono Mountains. Now, the Pocono Mountains are the place to go.
And that's what I wanted to ask, John. You have that perspective because
Yeah.
you've been here. So, from your time first here with your family to now, what evolution have you seen? Because you came at the peak of the honeymoon
Yes.
part of it. So,
Right.
where do you think we are now? Where do you think the Pocono Mountains is going?
I think it's been absolutely amazing what has happened to the Pocono Mountains. Somewhere probably 15 years ago, we changed our direction in the Pocono. I've been involved in the Pocono Mountain Business Bureau, and I should say my dad was one of the first presidents. He brought Bob Ucachini to the PMBB. I bought the business with my dad when I was 34, but he was 57, so he was very young. So he had time, and he got very involved in hospitality and tourism for the whole state, but in particular the Pocono Mountains. So when we had this big session, when I was involved in the PMVB, and you weren't here yet, Chris, but we talked about what do we want the Pocono Mountains to be, what should it grow to be? It's no longer a honeymoon resort area. We have so much nature. We have, rivers and streams and, beautiful woods, and we're only 90 miles away from New York and Philadelphia. We should be the mecca of people vacationing. There's so much diversity there that can happen. So we changed our mission from honeymoons to nature and family, and we still have great honeymoon places, but that's not all we have. Skiing in the wintertime, snow tubing, and all these water parks that have come in. There's just so much here now. And a credit to everybody in the PMB over the years, but the real change has taken place since you've come on, Chris. You've really made a significant difference in what's happened here. You took all the assets of the Pocono Mountains and all the wonderful people we have working in this industry, and you gave us more direction. You gave us more exposure, and the Pocono Mountains is now nobody says, oh, the Pocono Mountains, that's lower class. That's not it. Now we are the place to go, and it's close by, and people today don't have the time, so it's great. I mean, we have really been blessed to have you as a leader, but also we've always been blessed with the nature that's all around us. So
It's easy
good
to
places.
do with such great products and the type and composition of hospitality that you have started, the Frenchman or folks like that. There's a basis here that I personally don't think is anywhere in the world. That's my opinion.
Well, owner operated is wonderful. Now we have bigger properties in that aren't, and they're great. But for me, when the owner is out there all the time and wearing funny pants and having people laugh, and when we first opened the spa, when we took over, I would go over every day and I would change my pants before I went there, because I said, this is a destination spa. This is not something I should be wearing these funny pants to. But everybody said I got too busy. I couldn't change it. When everybody responds the same way. It's a conversation piece. The people who are young at heart got right into it. I wear them every day, and I have all kinds of 85 pair of character pants, waist size 32 to 40. I've been doing it a long time, so that's all a part of.
But you look great for 77.
Yeah,
I
well,
wouldn't have guessed that.
I love what I do.
You've so
I love
much
what I do.
energy and spirit.
Yeah, I have good energy.
Which I think when you have energy and spirit, your team members see that too, and they want to emulate it because they believe in you. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because this has kind of been on my mind as we've had this conversation, in your crystal ball of sorts, because you've been around a long time, where do you think the Pocono Mountains will be in 20 years from now? How has the guest changed? Has the guest changed?
Well, I would say that because we have so much diversity of product in the Pocono Mountains right now, we do. We have all kinds of different places and water parks and honeymoon resorts and family resorts and restaurants and ski areas. I think the key for what we are doing and what's going to happen in the future is that we don't overbuild. And we turn the Pocono Mountains into more of a suburban area, because it's coming. New York is, we have to be careful of that. So we keep the nature, because that's part of the core. We keep the clean rivers and the streams and whatnot. And we keep the population behind us. They're supportive of us now. But if it gets too crazy, or we have too much different things in, I get concerned that we may lose some of that charm and some of that attraction. We want nature to be still the center. I think the diversity we have, that will continue to populate itself, and our family resort is going to keep going. Our destination spa, golf course, all those things. I think we have a good mix now. So that you can never stop. You're just going to keep making that mix better without sacrificing the environment. There's parts of America that are just basically unchanged. You add facilities, but you try not to change the culture. That's a big challenge. And you have to keep it still exciting.
We could go on all afternoon, but my last question for you is, you're coming back in 2158, okay? You go to Woodloch. What do you want to see?
I'll tell you what I want to feel. I want to feel the heart and culture that we started in 1958 is still there. Because if it's not, whatever I see is not going to be the same. It's not going to be really what keeps people coming back. Now, Woodloch will, we don't get too much bigger. We have opportunities to do some different things, and we'll do that. But the key is not what I see, but what I feel. And I think that's in anything we touch. What's made it popular, what's made it successful, is the culture and the feeling that, we really treat people like company or home, like you're our friends. Talk to everybody. I'm still in the dining room every day, 6 days a week. I love what I do.
Eating the best food.
Eating and enjoying people. So that's the answer to that question. What I want to see, I want to feel. That's what I want to do.
John Kiesenthal, this has just been a joy. I can't tell you how great it's been just to sit down and spend some time talking with you. You're really the heart and feeling of the Pocono Mountains. And I know when we come back in 2058, that spirit will still be there. So you're watching Pocono Perspectives. We have been with John Kiesenthal. Thanks for watching.
Woodloch, a tradition of excellence and hospitality, continuously garnering national awards, and knowing JK and the rest of the family, it's pretty clear why that is. Thanks to the Woodloch family for making us all Pocono proud. Thanks for listening to Pocono Mountains Podcast. We'll have a new episode each week highlighting lots of the fun things you can experience while you're visiting the Poconos. Subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform you listen.
Mom, this is for you. A vacation is for the whole family, even you, Mom. And the time with your family becomes a great memory. Now you can go on vacation the same time your family does. A vacation in the Pocono Mountains means you can't wait until tomorrow. A Pocono Mountains vacation can be a special kind of mom's therapy too. Visit PoconoMountains.com.
We're back. Thanks for listening to Pocono Mountains Podcast. I'm Jim Hamill. Now for a Pocono Mountains Podcast Extra. Staying at Woodloch, a story about mothers. A couple of years ago from Pocono Mountains Magazine, Ellen and Dusty, two of the key components behind making Woodloch look festive during the holidays and beautiful each season. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, Jim Hamill here, and in the Pocono Mountains, May means that flowers are in bloom. And here at Woodloch Pines Resort, this place is immaculate every springtime, and especially because of the mother-daughter gardening team that makes this place look impeccable each and every year. Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there.
Anyone who has spent time at Woodloch can attest. This is a place of beauty. And behind all the gardens, perennials, holiday decor, and all, is the gardening mother-daughter duo of Ellen and Dusty.
So many people like, oh, I could never work with my mother.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm fun.
You are.
Ellen Dunn has 20 years as head gardener at the various Woodloch properties. Dusty came on board 16 years ago. And each and every year, through every change of seasons, they're together on the job.
We've been doing this so long together that we just kind of know what needs to be done.
Yep. Hey, hand me a shovel, I said. How's that? That's good, right?
We both have our parts that we do, and we just jump out and we dig in and do it.
On this day, Ellen and Dusty and their coworker Kathy are preparing for the Easter holiday weekend at the resort,
Okay, see you on the next rock.
making the iconic entrance look as welcoming as it does.
Our summer flower order is coming next week, so we need to get the pansies planted.
Whether they're digging in the dirt or hauling heavy planters, Ellen and Dusty have formed a bond deeper than any roots can go. And that's true for the relationship they also have to Woodloch and its guests.
It's a good feeling, and then you have families coming here to enjoy the resort, and you know, when they find out that we're a mother-daughter team, they just love it, you know, and they're just happy to see that.
For Ellen, being a mom is her biggest accomplishment, she says, and working with flowers also brings her a lot of happiness. Doing both together is a bonus, and soon Dusty will be able to say the same.
So in the fall, we have a big event happening, and she won't be here for a while.
Oh, right, yeah.
Dusty's gonna have a baby.
This mother-daughter gardening tag team admit it can get testy at times to work with family.
It's good.
We do fight sometimes, and I'll admit I'm the stubborn one, and you know, I stick to my guns sometimes too much, and then you know, it might turn into a fight, but I think we're pretty good at, you know, coming back around. And
We do, always.
But when they both look at how fortunate they are to work here at Woodloch together, doing what they love,
I'm grateful that I get to work with my mom every day.
And there she goes.
Yep.
Ellen and Dusty are blessed beyond measure to share time together, creating a beautiful backdrop for Woodloch families and their own family. Jim Hamill for the Pocono Television Network. Woodloch Resort, the Springs, and the Lodge at Woodloch, some of the very best hospitality you can expect anywhere. We hope you enjoyed Pocono Mountains Podcast. Please remember to subscribe anywhere podcasts are available. Come visit us in the Pocono Mountains. Plan your trip today.